Because of Caleb, Chloe had spent 15 long years in prison. Yet, he ruthlessly stole her family fortune and took his childhood sweetheart to enjoy a life of luxury. Early in the morning, right after she had stepped into the classroom, Caleb blocked her path in the aisle. "Chloe Sterling, haven't you caused enough trouble?" he demanded, shoving her hard enough that she stumbled backward, her head slamming against the wall behind her. In her dizziness, countless fragments of memory flashed through her mind. Opening her eyes again, Caleb was standing before her with a frown, his face filled with disgust as he spat out, "Your money makes me sick." The rushing memories reminded her that in her past life, she had been deeply in love with Caleb. Knowing his family was struggling financially, his father having passed away early, and his mother suffering from a terminal illness, unable to afford his education, she had secretly sponsored him to help him finish school. Chloe had even hidden it from Caleb, quietly visiting the hospital to care for his gravely ill mother. Caleb's mother had adored her. However, in Caleb's eyes, all these actions were seen as calculating and manipulative. He despised her help, yet he couldn't afford to refuse it. Eventually, pressured by his mother, he reluctantly agreed to be with her. The person he truly loved was Mia, a younger girl from his school. But at the time, Chloe had no idea. She foolishly believed that as long as she persisted in quietly sacrificing for him, one day Caleb would finally acknowledge her existence. To help Caleb build his career, she ignored her family's objections and handed her entire company over to him to manage. When he made a massive mistake, she even stupidly took the blame, spending 15 long years in prison. During those 15 years, Caleb never visited her even once. He used her own family fortune to drive her parents to their deaths, married Mia, and lived a life of luxury. Suffering from a severe illness and hearing the news of her parents' passing, she couldn't handle the devastating blow. Ultimately, she passed away, full of resentment, in that cold prison. But now, she had been reborn. Hey everyone, ever sacrificed everything for someone just to be used? Today, watch how Chloe wakes up from blind love and fiercely reclaims her worth. Let's dive in. Seeing her staring at him, the disgust in Caleb's eyes became even more apparent, completely unhidden. "Chloe Sterling, can you save some dignity for yourself?" he snapped. "Looking at me with those pathetic stalker-like eyes, do you really think I'm going to soften up?" The classmates surrounding them started to chime in with their mockery. "Ha ha ha. Isn't Chloe just Caleb's most loyal stalker? If he told her to kneel, she'd absolutely never dare to stand." A smug look appeared in Caleb's eyes. "I'll let you off the hook today. Hurry up and get back to your seat," he said in a condescending, charitable tone before turning around to leave. Remembering the cruel torture of her past life, Chloe forcefully suppressed the urge to lunge forward and fight him to the death. There was no need to rush. Revenge was best served slowly, cutting away with a dull knife piece by piece. She reached out and slapped him hard on the shoulder. He turned back, his face full of irritation. "I told you to get lost. Don't you understand plain English? Who are you trying to annoy standing here?" She reached out and snatched back the envelope from his hand. Inside was the money she had just anonymously donated through the school to sponsor him. What a coincidence. This is the first time I've ever felt sick spending money. Whoever wants to support this ungrateful, pathetic loser can go right ahead. I'm done serving you, you piece of trash. Caleb stared at her in shock, his expression changing instantly. "Chloe Sterling, get on your knees and apologize to me right now. Do you even know what you're saying?" Caleb demanded. Chloe let out a sarcastic laugh. "Didn't you say that spending my money made you sick? Now that I'm taking it back to do you a favor, you want it again? Are you afraid that without this money, you won't be able to pay this semester's tuition? Or are you worried that your mother's hospital bills will be cut off?" In the past, Chloe had always carefully protected Caleb's fragile, cheap pride in class. In his eyes, she was nothing more than his most obedient and loyal stalker, silently sacrificing everything for him while constantly enduring his mockery. In her previous life, she had been so blinded by love. She had been incredibly foolish. "Now get out of my sight, you piece of trash," she sneered. From this day forward, she wouldn't give him a single cent of charity. He clearly had the fate of a beggar, yet he loved to parade around like a young master born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Without the tuition money she sponsored him with, who knew which construction site he would be hauling bricks at right now? Verbally, he despised her money as dirty, but behind her back, he casually enjoyed every allowance she provided. He used her money to buy designer shoes, to treat his friends to meals, and even to buy gifts for Mia. And after all that was said and done, he would turn right around and humiliate Chloe. But now, she was wide awake. She was just waiting to see which intersection he would be begging at next month, so she could drop by and toss him a few spare pennies. After school, Chloe had her driver take her straight to the hospital. Just as she finished her business and walked out the door, she bumped right into Caleb, who was helping his mother take a walk near the entrance. The moment he caught sight of her, Caleb scoffed coldly, his eyes brimming with contempt. "You talked a big game at school, so what are you doing sneaking around here now?" He really was exceptionally good at deluding himself, truly acting as if he were God's gift to the world. Caleb's mother reached out, intending to pull Chloe in for a chat, but Chloe quickly dodged her grasp. The older woman froze for a moment before forcing a polite smile. "Caleb, this child just has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Chloe, sweetie, I heard the hospital just got a new specialized medicine. It's highly effective but extremely expensive, and insurance doesn't cover it yet. A single injection costs over $100,000. I don't know if I'll be fortunate enough to try it." In her previous life, Chloe hadn't just been blind. Her brain must have been entirely waterlogged. Time and time again, she had thought Caleb's mother genuinely loved her. In reality, the woman was even better at leeching off her than her precious son. She would sweet-talk Chloe on the surface, while internally scheming to drain her of every penny, using Chloe's money to treat her illness and forcing Chloe to raise her son for her. She was simply more cunning about it, knowing exactly how to hand Chloe a piece of candy before sinking her fangs in, whispering a few pleasant words to coax her into compliance. Over $100,000 for a single injection, and she actually had the nerve to ask for it. Chloe offered a cold, indifferent smile. "Ma'am, wait until Caleb gets into a prestigious university, finds a good company, and grinds for 8 to 15 years. Then, maybe, you'll have a chance to use it. Whether you can wait that long will just depend on whether your health can hold out." Caleb's face instantly darkened, and he glared at her with eyes full of sheer hatred. "Chloe Sterling, apologize to my mother right now. If you don't, I will never, ever forgive you." Chloe coldly held up the hospital payment card. The disdain on Caleb's face grew even more apparent, his voice dripping with mockery. "Don't think that just because you paid my mother's hospital bills, we can let this slide. Apologize to my mother immediately." Chloe frowned slightly. "We both received the same 12 years of basic education, so how on earth did you manage to excel at being so utterly shameless?" Caleb froze, unable to react in time before Chloe shoved the card directly into his hand. Before he could even open his mouth, a passing nurse recognized Caleb and his mother and spoke up in an incredibly exasperated tone. "Bed 19, the balance on your card is insufficient. Pay up quickly, or your medication will be cut off. If you don't have the money, don't come for treatment. You just made me take a wasted trip." The place she had arranged for Caleb's mother was the best private hospital in the city. Here, money was the ultimate authority. The faces of the mother and son instantly stiffened, rooted to the spot. Chloe chuckled softly, her eyes sizing him up. "If you have nothing better to do, eat some more walnuts to nourish that brain of yours." She turned around and was about to walk away, but Caleb spread his arms, blocking her path. He aggressively shouted, "Where is the money in the card? I just checked it this morning, and there was clearly still $100,000 left. What on earth did you do with that money?" Chloe let out a cold laugh. "Is that your money?" Caleb's lips moved a few times, but he couldn't utter a single word in response. His mother had claimed she trusted Chloe and gave her the hospital card to keep, but in reality, it was just to make it convenient for Chloe to load money for her treatments. Now that she had been reborn, if they were still daydreaming about spending her money, they were sorely mistaken. "It's my money. On what grounds can I not take it back?" she retorted. "If you have any real backbone, bring back everything you've ever bought with my money and return it all. Don't spend my money all day and then claim it makes you sick." Caleb clenched his fists, tensing up a few times before letting them drop loosely. Chloe found it laughable. He didn't even have a few spare pennies in his pocket, yet he dared to yell at her so loudly. He probably didn't even know the definition of the term financial backer. But Caleb still stubbornly refused to yield. "Don't think that just because you have money, you can bully people however you want." Bullying people? She hadn't even made a real move yet, and he was already jumping up and making such a fuss. The days of him covering his face, crying pitifully, and groveling on the ground begging for forgiveness were still long ahead of him. With that frail body of his, she wondered how many of her blows he could actually withstand. Looking at his "I'd rather die than submit" posture, she couldn't help but toss out a sarcastic remark. "Could you tone down the dramatics a bit? Keep it as low as the amount of money in your pockets, please." Just as the words left her mouth, a voice suddenly rang out from behind. "Chloe Sterling, so what if you have money? What gives you the right to bully Caleb like that?" Well. The precious childhood sweetheart had arrived. Mia glared at Chloe, with eyes blazing with anger. "Apologize to Caleb right now." Chloe sneered. "And who are you?" In her past life, she had foolishly believed Caleb's lies, thinking he truly only saw Mia as a younger sister. Because of that, she had been incredibly tolerant of her, and gave her way too much leeway. Mia's expression stiffened for a moment before she furrowed her brows and glared at Chloe. Chloe, I don't know who taught you this playing hard to get trick. I just want to tell you that doing this will only make Caleb despise you even more. Do you understand? She put on a preachy, self-righteous attitude, looking incredibly serious. If an outsider didn't know any better, they would have genuinely thought she was acting as Chloe's love guru, helping her pursue Caleb. Hearing this, Chloe couldn't help but burst out laughing. That's right, he hates me and likes you, doesn't he? I'm stepping aside to let you have your way. Aren't you happy about that? Mia's cheeks instantly flushed bright red. It seemed she hadn't expected her dark, hidden thoughts to be exposed so easily. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't utter a word. Seeing his childhood sweetheart being bullied, Caleb naturally couldn't sit still. His face darkened as he roared at Chloe. Chloe, are you sick in the head? What kind of ridiculous jealousy is this? If you keep acting like this, I will never, ever look at you again. Chloe pressed her hands together in a mock praying gesture. Bodhisattva, bless me. You've finally helped me escape a blood-sucking leech like you. Mia's eyes grew red as she turned to Caleb, crying and whining. Caleb, Chloe's going too far. How can she say that about you? This is slander against you. Slander? Did she actually consider Caleb some descended deity to dare use such a word? Egged on by Mia, Caleb went completely mad. You're digging your own grave. He swung his arm and aggressively lunged straight at her. The next second, a blood-curdling scream, like a pig being slaughtered, rang out. Only, the person screaming tragically wasn't Chloe, but Caleb. She had executed a flawless shoulder throw, slamming his body hard onto the cold ground. Clutching his aching body, Caleb glared at her in shock and pain. Mia immediately crouched down beside him. Caleb, are you okay? How could she be so heartless to you? Doesn't her conscience bother her at all? He was the one in physical pain. Why the hell would her conscience bother her? Caleb's mother stamped her feet in fury. I'm calling the police to have you arrested. Seeing that Chloe had no reaction whatsoever, she loudly emphasized. This time, no matter how much money you try to pay in compensation, we won't accept it. We will absolutely make sure you get a criminal record. The sound of her calculating schemes was so loud that Chloe could hear it from 800 miles away. At the end of the day, it was just a shakedown. Chloe raised her hand and pointed at the security camera mounted on the ceiling. Go ahead, call the cops. Let them pull the security footage and see if I was acting in self-defense. When the time comes, we'll see who actually ends up in handcuffs. Failing at her attempted extortion, Caleb's mother started up her gaslighting routine again. Look at Mia, and then take a look at yourself. How can there be such a world of difference? No wonder my Caleb doesn't even spare you a glance. Hadn't she slapped them in the face clearly enough? How are they still clinging to such pathetic delusions? Chloe shot Caleb a cold glare. She had money and beauty. What did Caleb have? After eating too many delicacies, I occasionally wanted to change my palate and try some stinky tofu from a street stall. Just because I took a couple of bites, you all deluded yourselves into thinking I was addicted? Chloe sneered. Didn't you know that stuff is just garbage? Didn't Caleb constantly interrogate me in the past, saying I looked down on him just because I had money? I only sponsored him because it amused me. Fine, then I'll just decisively make his assumptions come true. Caleb, who had just been aggressively scorning her, was now looking at her with absolute shock. His lips trembled several times, but he couldn't formulate a complete sentence. You what? Get out of here and go cry somewhere else. Chloe lifted her foot and kicked Caleb's hand away. Ignoring his endless groans behind her, she turned her back and walked away without bothering to look back. As soon as she stepped out of the hospital, she bumped right into her sworn enemy, Carter. Carter's family was incredibly wealthy, and they were neighbors who had grown up together since childhood. It was just that the relationship between Chloe and Carter wasn't exactly great. The two of them had practically fought from childhood to adulthood. On top of that, Carter found Caleb to be an absolute eyesore, feeling that he was a leech, living off a woman while acting all high and mighty. Carter constantly clashed with him, and over time, the relationship between Chloe and Carter had also become increasingly tense. But in her past life, right before she died, the only person who came to visit her in prison was Carter. He had even been the one to step up and pay for her parents' funeral expenses. She would forever engrave this monumental debt of gratitude in her heart. Carter raised an eyebrow and swept his gaze over her. Which powerful master did Uncle Sterling find for you that managed to break your lovesick hex so quickly? He had always suspected that Caleb had cast some sort of spell on her, which was why she had turned into such a foolishly love-blind girl. Chloe smiled, sizing him up. Can't you just allow a girl to have a sudden epiphany? Carter's expression faltered for a moment. Then, he hopped out of the car, grabbed her hand, and dragged her right back toward the hospital entrance. No way. There is definitely something wrong with your head. I have to take you to the neurology department to get checked out. Chloe yanked her hand away and scolded him angrily. You're the one who's sick. I'm way more normal than you are. Carter immediately burst out laughing. Now this is a normal reaction. Chloe glared at him, pulled open the car door, and got in. Take me home. Carter sat down in the driver's seat. Carter occasionally stole glances at her through the rearview mirror. The car had already parked right in front of her house, but the curiosity in his eyes still hadn't faded. Chloe glanced at the clock and suddenly remembered something incredibly important. She hurriedly turned to him with an extremely serious look and said, "If Uncle Davis has nothing going on today, absolutely do not let him leave the house." Carter looked at her with extreme skepticism. "Is your brain waterlogged? Why the sudden concern for my dad?" September 10th. She couldn't possibly remember it wrong. It was exactly today. Their city had been experiencing heavy rain for consecutive days, leading to flash floods in the mountains. When the landslide occurred, it swept away a car. The person sitting in that car was none other than Carter's dad. After Uncle Davis passed away, the Davis family's business plummeted drastically. Carter went from being a wealthy young master born with a silver spoon to a completely ruined man. Later on, he was constantly suppressed by Caleb to the point where he couldn't even find a decent job. "Haven't you looked at the weather?" she retorted. "With such heavy rain, can't you care about your dad a little? I even want to lock my own dad inside the house. I'm just afraid a massive flood will wash him away." Chloe had no way of telling Carter that she had been reborn. Even if she did, he wouldn't believe it. Seeing her emphasize it over and over again, Carter finally nodded, not seeming to care too much. "Got it. I'll tell the old man when I get back." The Davis family had been incredibly kind to her in her past life. Since she had been given a second chance, she hoped she could prevent their tragedy. Early the next morning, she was woken up very early by her mother, who said, "Carter is waiting for you downstairs." Still groggy from sleep, Chloe slowly trudged downstairs, only to be instantly stunned by the sight before her. Her spacious living room was now completely stuffed to the brim with boxes and gifts. "Did you bring all this?" she asked. Carter nodded eagerly and continuously. "Thank God you warned me last night. Otherwise, my dad would have definitely lost his life." She feigned ignorance, offering a slight smile. "What big deal?" Carter quickly recounted the flash flood from yesterday. He explained that just as his dad was about to leave, Carter had desperately stopped him. Half an hour later, a horrifying flash flood had occurred exactly as she had warned. "You saved my dad's life. How do you want me to repay you? Just name it, and I'll agree to it." She was just about to open her mouth and say it wasn't necessary when she heard Carter continue, "I've already given instructions to the hospital. From now on, when your little boyfriend's mom comes in for treatment, just put it all on my family's tab. Use the most expensive medication and arrange for the best doctors." Hearing this, Chloe immediately spat out the mouthful of green tea she had just taken. "Huh? What did you just say?" She grabbed Carter and frantically rushed back to the hospital, only to coincidentally bump right into Caleb again. Beside him, of course, was still Mia. The moment he saw her, Caleb's eyes lit up for a fraction of a second before quickly clouding over with that familiar disgust. "Why are you here again?" Mia chimed in, coordinating perfectly. "Chloe, your tricks are honestly both stupid and ridiculous. Do you really think threatening Caleb like that will work? You're only making him hate you even more." Chloe felt she had absolutely nothing to say to this brain-dead, two-faced girl. She lifted her foot and gave Carter, who was standing beside her, a hard kick. It was all this idiot's fault. Look at the wonderful mess he had just created. On the way over, she had already explained things clearly to Carter. He now knew that she had completely lost all interest in Caleb. Having been kicked by her, Carter immediately summoned the hospital manager and pointed his finger straight at Caleb's face. "Withdraw all the instructions I gave earlier. Memorize this guy's face. From now on, anyone related to him is absolutely banned from our hospital." This was a private hospital, and the Davis family were the owners. Hearing the young master's orders, the manager nodded repeatedly. "Yes, sir. I will arrange it immediately." Caleb stood there, completely dumbfounded. After processing what had just happened, Caleb immediately rolled his eyes at Chloe. "Chloe Sterling, don't you find this annoying? Pulling this kind of trick again?" Mia looked incredibly smug, raising an eyebrow to provoke her. "What a despicable trick. Do you really think doing this will make Caleb submit to you?" Carter leaned in and whispered in Chloe's ear, "Is this kid blind? Can't he tell how much you despise him?" Chloe shot Carter a glare full of disgust. "If I hadn't wasted my breath explaining it to you on the way here, wouldn't you be doing something just as stupid right now?" Caleb and Mia were still looking smug, assuming that Chloe was scheming and playing hard to get, but she didn't even need to lift a finger. Reality dealt them a resounding slap in the face. Since Caleb's mother had no money to continue paying the hospital bills, her belongings were immediately thrown right out of the hospital room. The caregiver stood with her hands on her hips, scolding her in a shrill, harsh tone. "You don't have any money, yet you act like some big shot? Get out." Caleb's mother turned red in the face with anger. "You dogs relying on your master's power. Just wait until my son gets back. We'll see how you handle this." While she was screaming, the caregiver threw her breakfast out as well. A whole glass of milk splashed right onto her, making for a truly pathetic sight. Caleb's mother shrieked and turned around. As soon as she saw Caleb, she was about to open her mouth to cry and complain, but when she caught sight of Chloe standing behind him, her eyes lit up. "Chloe, you're finally here." The moment Caleb's mother lunged toward her, Chloe immediately dodged to the side. The older woman stared at her in stunned silence. Chloe didn't bother hiding her disgust and said coldly, "Stay away from me. Don't pass your germs on to me." Hearing her say that, Carter put on an exaggerated display, frantically fanning his hand in front of Chloe as if helping her ward off evil spirits. The faces of the mother and son turned from pale white to a sickly shade of green. Caleb angrily clenched his fists. He was just about to open his mouth to curse at her when his mother pressed him down. Looking at her demeanor, Chloe couldn't help but let out a mocking laugh in her heart. The taste of poverty surely wasn't pleasant at all, was it? Caleb's mother forced a fawning smile at her. "Chloe, what kind of game are you playing now? Caleb doesn't like girls who make such a fuss. This hospital room is very comfortable, but that caregiver is truly detestable. If you could change to a better one for me, Caleb would worry less and spend some time strolling around town with you." Chloe burst into loud laughter. "Ma'am, do you seriously consider Caleb to be a host at a nightclub? If I change the caregiver for you, he'll go shopping with me? Then if I give you a little more money, can he work like a horse for me?" Carter enthusiastically chimed in. "Not just work like a horse. Give her a little more cash, and she'd strip her own son naked and serve him right to your bed." Caleb's mother froze completely, her entire face and ears flushing bright red, as if her despicable intentions had been ruthlessly exposed by someone else. Caleb, on the other hand, flew into an absolute rage. "Chloe Sterling, you're taking this bullying too far. Get the hell out of here." Chloe swept a cold gaze over him. "Me? Get out? Who do you think you are to tell me to get out? Do you see the words written on that sign over there? The one who needs to get out is you." Mia, the devoted childhood sweetheart, immediately jumped out to protect Caleb's fragile, sensitive heart. "Chloe Sterling, aren't you afraid that from now on, Caleb will never see you again?" As soon as she finished speaking, Chloe cheerfully clapped her hands in applause. "That's exactly what I'm hoping for." Caleb furrowed his brows tightly, staring at her with an extremely complex expression in his eyes. "Are you really not afraid of me hating you?" Chloe gave a soft smile. "If I didn't do these things, would you stop hating me?" Chloe asked. Caleb froze, completely dumbfounded. The answer was already all too clear. Taking a deep breath, he acted as if he had just made an incredibly agonizing decision. "If you're willing to sincerely apologize to my mother and Mia, I might be able to hate you a little less in the future." Oh my, as if this was such a huge grievance for him. It was truly ridiculously laughable. "I have beauty, and I have money. What do I need from you?" She sneered. "Do I need your poverty, or do I need your shameless, thick-skinned habit of clinging to women? It was just a fleeting whim. Do you seriously consider yourself some precious treasure?" Standing next to her, Carter excitedly clapped his hands nonstop. "Brilliant! Well said!" Trembling all over with anger, Caleb pointed his finger straight at her face. Ultimately, with a darkened expression, he had no choice but to grab his mother and drag her away. As Chloe and Carter were about to leave the hospital, Mia suddenly rushed out and blocked their way. "Chloe Sterling, I need to speak with you in private." Carter was just about to turn and walk away, but Chloe grabbed him tightly. "Stay and protect me. I'm afraid she might go crazy and start biting people at random." Mia's expression looked incredibly ugly. She was about to open her mouth to say something, but Chloe ruthlessly cut her off. "If you have something to say it fast. If not, get lost." "Chloe Sterling, I have a way to make Caleb accept you," Mia stated. "The condition is that you must send me to study abroad in the UK and cover all the expenses." After saying that, she looked at Chloe with extreme smugness, her face clearly showing that she thought victory was firmly in her grasp. The person standing before her was truly stupid beyond words. Just how blind had Chloe been in her past life to be spun around in the palms of these two people's hands? Chloe scoffed. "And then what? I become your personal ATM for you to drain as you please?" Mia looked at her suspiciously, clearly unaware that her petty little schemes had long been seen through by Chloe. As long as Chloe demeaned herself to cling to Caleb, Mia would be able to scrape benefits from him. Other than Caleb's mother, Mia was the one who least wanted Chloe to leave Caleb's side. Mia's family background was very ordinary, but her greed was higher than the sky. In her previous life, she had also made this demand to study abroad. She had instigated Caleb to come find Chloe, and at that time, Chloe had agreed without a second's hesitation. Not only did Chloe ask her relatives abroad to take care of Mia, but she even paid for every single flight ticket whenever Mia returned home. A few years later, Mia built up the image of a highly educated, successful woman and returned home after completing her studies. Standing next to Caleb, everyone couldn't help but praise them as a brilliantly matched, dazzling couple of a talented man and a beautiful woman. As for Chloe back then, she was like an ugly duckling, only daring to hide in a dark corner, feeling inferior and secretly watching everything that originally belonged to her. Since she wanted to study abroad so badly, Chloe would grant her wish. "If you're really short on money to study abroad, I'll point you to a bright path," Chloe said. "Are you really helping her?" Carter asked, looking extremely baffled. Just a moment ago, Chloe had sent Mia someone's social media account. If she wanted to go abroad, she would have to fight for it herself. Mia's family had always favored sons over daughters. If she wanted to escape her current fate, studying abroad was her only way out. Facing Carter's confusion, Chloe just gave a faint smile. Everyone has to pay the price for their own choices. The wealthy older gentleman Chloe had just introduced to Mia was very fond of extending a helping hand to young women. As long as she made him happy, anything could be negotiated. However, he preferred to discuss matters in private, secluded places. Whether she had what it takes to get his sponsorship would just depend on how formidable Mia's skills at coaxing men really were. In her past life, Mia had trampled all over Chloe to build up her image as a pure, highly educated goddess. In this life, Chloe would see exactly how this white lotus would manage to stay clean while rolling in the mud. Ever since Chloe had warned Carter and helped his father escape disaster, Carter treated her like the Davis family's ultimate benefactor. He was always volunteering to run errands and gather all sorts of gossip for her. Caleb's family got kicked out onto the streets by their landlord. Last night, his mom had to sleep rough on the sidewalk, Carter reported. Keeping a calm expression, Chloe took the phone he handed her. In the video, Caleb looked incredibly pathetic, no different from a scared rat scurrying across the street being shooed away by people. The landlord had him tightly by the collar, demanding that he pay the rent immediately. Refusing to back down, Caleb screamed right in the landlord's face, "Get your dirty hands off me! You lowly scum! Don't dirty my clothes!" The hot-tempered landlord immediately swung his fist, teaching him a lesson he would never forget. Caleb was beaten to the ground, only able to shriek and beg for mercy. The landlord planted a foot on his chest, glaring fiercely as he warned him. "Do you really think you're some young master? If it weren't for that rich young lady paying top dollar, do you think I'd bother putting up with a piece of trash like you?" A flash of shock crossed Caleb's eyes. "What do you mean by that? Back in the day, if it weren't for my dad promoting you, how would you be where you are today?" Before he could even finish his sentence, the landlord spat right in his face. "Bullshit! What promotion? The man has been dead for ages. What the hell are you talking about promoting? I only let you rent this place because Chloe Sterling paid way more than anyone else." "You idiot, having the chance to cling to such a massive money tree and not knowing how to cherish. You deserve getting kicked to the curb." Knowing Caleb's family was struggling financially, but seeing him stubbornly refuse her aid, Chloe had sought out his late father's former subordinate. She had paid an exorbitant amount of rent just so Caleb could live in that luxury apartment for free. As a result, Caleb genuinely deluded himself into thinking he was God's chosen one, believing that everyone had to cater to him and worship the ground he walked on. Remembering the cruel revenge Caleb had rained down upon her in her past life, Chloe's fists clenched involuntarily. This was only the beginning. In the days to come, she would make Caleb experience a fate worse than death. After school, Caleb blocked her path. He stared at her with incredibly complicated eyes. "You did so much for me. Why didn't you ever tell me?" Chloe remained silent, giving no reply. Assuming she didn't know that the secret about the apartment had been exposed, Caleb deliberately emphasized it again. "Chloe, before, I truly didn't know you had silently done so much for me." If she were still Caleb's loyal, fawning lapdog right now, the moment he found out she was the one paying his rent behind the scenes, he would undoubtedly mock and scold her for using money to bully him. And then, he would calmly turn around and enjoy all the material comforts she provided. The only reason he was willing to lower himself to come find her now was simply because he was terrified of returning to those days of abject, ragged poverty. Chloe scoffed, holding her palm out in front of him. "Hand it over." Caleb looked bewildered. She continued, "Don't tell me you didn't come to pay me back the rent money? You can't be serious. Is your skin really this thick? You know you owe me rent and you have no intention of paying it back?" Do you think being poor makes you special? The more insecure a person was, the more they hated having their weaknesses exposed by others. What Caleb hated most was being called poor. In the past, he used to scold her constantly. Do you think having money makes you so great? Now, she was going to throw all of those words right back in his face, not missing a single syllable. Caleb's face was filled with extreme embarrassment. I will definitely pay this money back, but... She didn't wait for him to finish the word but before quickly finishing his sentence for him. But right now, you don't have a single penny to your name, right? He nodded slightly. The look in his eyes toward her no longer held the previous disgust, replaced instead by a trace of fake gentleness. That look made her involuntarily nauseous. This cheap, belated affection wasn't even worth a blade of grass on the side of the road. She opened her backpack, pulled out a piece of paper and a pen, and threw them right in front of his face. Write an IOU. Borrowing and repaying is the bare minimum of human decency. Surely you don't want to be cursed as an animal, do you? Under her cold, sharp, and resolute gaze, Caleb had no choice but to obediently lower his head and write the IOU. Caleb's pockets were now even cleaner than his face. He was destined to be completely unable to pay back this amount of money, but disgusting him for a bit made it totally worth it. She was about to walk away when Caleb hurriedly called her back. He stared at her with a look of overflowing, deep affection. Chloe, we could try dating. Who knows, maybe you can actually make my heart skip a beat. He was not only stupid but also blind and deaf. Were the words she had said before still not clear enough? She decisively raised her foot and delivered a straight kick to his knee. A toad wanting to eat swan meat? Get lost and go back to your pathetic daydreams. In the days that followed, the dynamic between her and Caleb completely reversed. Caleb pestered her every single day, buzzing around like an annoying eyesore of a fly. He was so bothersome that she wished she could just swat him to death with a bug zapper. During recess, Carter brought pastries to her classroom. Ever since her warning had helped his dad avoid a fatal disaster, Carter had considered her his absolute best friend in the world. Did you cast some kind of hex on him? Carter asked, his eyes glancing diagonally behind her. Caleb stood rooted to the spot, glaring at the two of them with the resentful eyes of a scorned woman. Seeing her turn to look, Caleb immediately stormed over. Chloe, have you developed feelings for Carter? She bluntly smacked him down with her words. Who I set my eyes on has absolutely nothing to do with you. Caleb was so furious that his eyes turned bloodshot. His outraged demeanor was exactly like a husband catching his wife red-handed, sneaking around with the neighbor. How can you be so fickle? The one you like is clearly me. You absolutely cannot like Carter. There was truly no way to explain things to this brain-dead idiot. She and Carter decided to treat him like thin air. It wasn't until Caleb felt too humiliated and slinked away that Carter lowered his voice and whispered, Did you know Caleb has been hanging out with Jason's crew lately? He's even getting involved in gambling. How could she not know? In this world, no one could read Caleb like a book better than she could. In her previous life, Caleb had secretly embezzled project funds from her father's company to blow on gambling. It was only after being discovered that he came crying and begging her for help. It was then that she was shocked to realize he had gambling in his blood all along. Reborn in this life, she had deliberately sped up the process so that Caleb's bad habits and vices would be exposed earlier. Don't be fooled by Jason's young age. He knew the tricks of underground gambling and loan sharking like the back of his hand. If Caleb got tangled up with those people, he'd lose a few layers of skin, if not his life. That day, while strolling through a luxury shopping mall with her mother, she accidentally bumped into Mia. She was dressed incredibly provocatively, clinging to the arm of that fake director Lewis, and constantly barking orders at the staff to take down designer bags for her to look at. Mia saw her as well and arrogantly turned her head away. Oh my, had the innocent, pure white lotus now evolved into a dazzlingly red, flirtatious peony? Mr. Lewis's hand continuously caressed her back, but at this moment, her eyes were solely focused on swallowing up the luxurious handbags sitting obediently in the display cases, just waiting for the two of them to finish shopping and leave. Chloe's mother's face immediately darkened. This old Lewis is getting more and more ridiculous. That girl looks to be about your age, yet he has absolutely no shame. Chloe pretended to be casual, effortlessly dropping a comment. Mom, that girl is even younger than me. She actually goes to the same school as I do. Who knows, maybe she ran into some difficulties and had to ask Uncle Lewis for help. Knowing that Mia went to the same school as Chloe, her mother's expression became even uglier. I have to have a proper talk with Mrs. Lewis. With such terrible morals, how can our family dare to continue doing business with the Lewis family? Naturally, Mrs. Lewis was the one who knew her husband's bad habits best. She knew full well she couldn't control him, but as long as it didn't harm her own interests, she could completely turn a blind eye. However, If this matter threatened the Lewis family's business interests, Mrs. Lewis definitely wouldn't sit idly by. Mia's streak of bad luck officially began right here. Her desk mate casually dragged a groggy, half-asleep Chloe up from her afternoon nap. "Let's go. There's a huge scene happening in Class 8 right now. Let's hurry over and watch." When they ran over, the doorway to Class 8 was already jam-packed with people. Everyone was crowding around to watch the commotion. From inside, the shrill cursing of a woman occasionally rang out, mixed with tragic, pleading cries. Her enthusiastic desk mate shoved and pushed to clear a path, dragging Chloe straight to the front row for an absolutely ideal spot to watch the drama unfold. As it turned out, the female lead of this drama was none other than Mia. She was being tightly grabbed by the hair by Mrs. Lewis, who was slapping her so hard she was dizzy. "You shameless vixen! How dare you seduce my husband? I'm going to teach you a lesson today to satisfy my anger." Mia was so terrified that she didn't even have a chance to open her mouth to explain herself. She looked just like a weak little chick being tossed from one corner to another by Mrs. Lewis. It wasn't until the teachers and the school's security guards rushed over in a panic to intervene and persuade Mrs. Lewis to let her go that she finally let go with a huff, throwing Mia down onto the floor. Mia tightly clutched her swollen face, crying pitifully as she begged the teacher for help. "Sir, I didn't do anything. I don't know this crazy woman at all. Please save me, sir." Mia's face was flushed and swollen beyond recognition, and her eyes were puffed up from crying like walnuts. This immediately elicited pity from the male teacher. "Mia, don't be afraid. I absolutely will not let anyone falsely accuse you. Protecting our students is our responsibility as teachers." Hearing this, Mrs. Lewis let out a sarcastic sneer. "You think I'm falsely accusing your good student? Then everyone open your eyes wide and see just how slutty this obedient student of yours really is." Mrs. Lewis swung her arm and violently tossed a stack of pictures into the air. Countless photos fell like snowflakes, scattering all over the floor. Seeing those photos, Mia completely panicked. She never expected that the scenes of her writhing and serving Mr. Lewis had all been secretly photographed. The surrounding crowd immediately started whispering, gossiping, and pointing fingers incessantly. "I can't believe it! She looks so pure and innocent normally, but behind our backs, she plays this big. Disgusting. She actually offered herself to an old man old enough to be her father. Is she really that cheap?" In her past life, Chloe had been framed by Mia during a fight over a lucrative project. Mia had teamed up with Caleb to force Chloe into Mr. Lewis's bed. Chloe had to risk her life just to escape, and that cooperative project was completely cancelled. She had never expected that in her past life, Mia had secretly taken those photos and posted them on Chloe's father's company website, turning Chloe into a shameless woman cursed by thousands. If she didn't let Mia taste this bitter flavor for herself, how could she ever be satisfied? The situation was almost completely out of control. The school had no choice but to arrange for someone to quickly escort Mia away from the scene. In her panic, Mia suddenly caught sight of Chloe. Her eyes instantly turned bloodshot, and she screamed like a wild beast, lunging straight toward her. "You did this, didn't you? Why are you so vicious? Why would you frame me like this? Are you even human?" Chloe maintained her calm expression, and coldly asked back, "Did I teach you how to climb into that old man's bed? Or did I force you to dress so provocatively and take these filthy pictures?" Mia was tongue-tied, unable to utter a single word in response. All of these things were choices she had made herself. She had been blinded by money and had fallen into ruin by her own doing, so who else could she blame? Suddenly, Caleb rushed out from the crowd, spreading his arms and standing in front of Chloe to protect her. "You're already this promiscuous, yet you still have the nerve to falsely accuse Chloe of framing you?" Mia stared blankly, softly calling out, "Caleb." Caleb growled angrily, "Don't dirty my name. Knowing a friend like you is a true humiliation to me." It was a spot-on statement, with not a single word out of place. The only difference was that in this life, the target Caleb was aiming at was Mia herself. Ha ha ha, how truly laughable. Mia's scandal shook the entire school. Even though the school administration tried their best to suppress the rumors, those explicit photos were still leaked and spread like wildfire online. Left with no other choice, the school was forced to expel Mia to appease the wave of public outrage. Rumor had it that after Mia returned home, she was beaten so badly by her alcoholic father that she couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. Her family had absolutely no interest in finding a new school for her to continue her education. Her mother planned to send her to work in a factory to slave away for 2 years to earn some money, and then marry her off to some random guy just to collect a bride price for her younger brother. Mia's life was essentially completely over from here on out. After school, Caleb brazenly blocked her path again. "Chloe, I have a few words I want to say to you." I don't have time to listen, she replied. With that, she walked around him, intending to leave. Caleb forcefully grabbed her and dragged her into a corner. Chloe, please just give me 1 minute. I'll just say 2 things and be done. She threw him a cold, indifferent look, waiting for him to finish. Who would have thought that Caleb would have the audacity to open his mouth and demand money from her? Can you give me 100 grand? Chloe furrowed her brows tightly. On what grounds should I give you that? Caleb let out a long sigh. Chloe, before, I was deceived by her and lost my mind. I just now realized how good you've been to me and how important you are to me. Can we please get back together? Get together, my ass! Chloe forcefully shoved Caleb away. Get out of my sight right now, and don't dirty the path I walk on. Hearing this, Caleb dropped to his knees with a loud thud, groveling in front of her, and began a tragic, crying performance. Chloe, I know I was wrong. This time, only you can save me. It's okay if you don't want to be with me. As long as you're willing to give me 100 grand, that's enough. If this guy's thick skin wasn't used as bulletproof material, it would truly be a massive waste of resources. You want money that badly? Go sell your own body, she sneered. But with your pale, weak, string bean figure, I'm afraid serving someone for a whole night wouldn't even earn you $200 or $300. 100 grand? Do you really think you're worth that much? Caleb gnashed his teeth, glaring at her with absolute fury. Chloe Sterling, I've been pushed to a dead end. Are you really going to be this heartless and refuse to help me? Chloe smiled mockingly, looking straight into his eyes. And what if I don't help you? Are you going to bite me? Caleb's face suddenly darkened. The next second, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a sharp weapon, and lunged madly straight at her. Chloe Sterling, you forced me to do this. Hand over the money right now. Thud! A loud noise rang out. 1 second, Caleb was aggressively trying to take a life, and the next, he was slammed to the ground, curled up and groaning like a pathetic dog. Had he forgotten that she was a black belt in Taekwondo? With his scrawny, plucked chicken physique, he actually dared to dream of ambushing her with a weapon? Carter quickly rushed to the scene, and immediately called the police for her. Hello, 911? There's an armed man here trying to commit armed robbery. The alleys around the school were densely equipped with security cameras. Caleb had first kneeled and begged to borrow money. When that failed, he resorted to threatening her with a weapon, intending to cause her bodily harm. The evidence was clear and irrefutable. Chloe's mother said that with this charge, he would be sentenced to at least 5 years behind bars. Having to squat in a jail cell for 5 whole years during the prime of his youth meant his life was utterly ruined. Even if he was released from prison later on, what awaited him was only an endless string of miserable days. Although Caleb had gone to prison to do his time, his massive gambling debt was still glaringly present. These loans had all been taken out by Caleb, using his own ID through formal channels. Even death couldn't erase debt, let alone just doing a few years in prison. Jason called to ask her how this rotten pile of debt should be handled now. Chloe coldly dropped a single sentence. He's in prison, but isn't his mother still perfectly available? Although Jason was terrible at his studies, his mind was incredibly sharp. Just a subtle hint was enough for him to grasp the situation immediately. Understood, Miss Sterling. Don't worry, I'll definitely handle this beautifully. Ever since Caleb was thrown into prison, every few days, Jason would bring his gang to find Caleb's mother and collect the debt. Caleb's mother dragged her sick, frail body around, doing odd jobs everywhere. Apart from a meager amount kept to maintain her daily living expenses, she had to empty out every remaining penny to shoulder the debt for her precious son. Her life became filled with endless humiliation and suffering. As for Caleb himself, his days in prison were not pleasant in the slightest. Chloe only had to spend a few packs of cigarettes to ask favors from his cellmates, and every couple of days, they would drag Caleb out and give him some special care. They forced him to sleep next to the toilet, facing the overpowering, foul stench day after day. In the middle of the night, when someone woke up to use the bathroom, they would deliberately splash dirty water right onto his head. Normally, whenever they were in a bad mood, they would drag Caleb out and beat him up a bit to vent their anger. Caleb had thought about rising up and fighting back, but the result of every attempt at resistance was only exchanged for beatings that were infinitely more tragic. Gradually, he completely gave up on the idea of struggling, dragging out a miserable existence no different from a bug at the very bottom of society. Chloe had sworn that, given a second chance at life, she would absolutely make Caleb taste a fate worse than death. And she had truly done it.
What a satisfying ending! Caleb and Mia proved that enabling selfish people only hurts you. Know your worth and cut off toxic ties. Comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe.